work and Arlington joining and all of that is, as you know, successful. And the county board adopted that in 2019. But David we were discussing this and we talk about biophilic Arlington, but some people don't actually know what that means. So we thought it would be good to kind of go back through and do a refresher and do sort of the presentation that we did before when we first got into this whole issue. So I'm gonna, as soon as we turn it over to you, I'm sure they'll show up. But anyway, I'm hoping that we can go ahead and go with this presentation and see what time that our friends from Nova Park show up.
Okay, good. Here with you. Yeah. Right. Just indulge me 1 second. I'm gonna put the lights down a little.
No, it's falling asleep.
I don't know if anybody brought popcorn. How's that? Good. So this is sort of a primer on biophilia visually. So it's like an introduction with a lot of graphics to make you feel good, so you're receptive to the idea of biophilia. And it's an updated version now. It's 6 years since the resolution, which means that theoretically all of the commissions that were commission members of all commissions or around at that time are no longer on commissions. So yeah, we had a lot of meetings, the three of us, and the early version of this was presented at least a dozen times during 2019. So this is just a way of saying the term is in lots of documents now, and we have SPRCs and other meetings where it's discussed, but it's like coming in the middle of a movie in a sense, and you know, it's important to get back to the fundamentals and see what everything is based on and why it's important. So, so biophilia is basically love of life, from the Greek, like Philadelphia is brotherly love. So Eric Fromm first coined the term in the 60s, recognizing that there is an attraction, which he said was psychological at the time, about humans with anything that's alive and vital. And E.O. Wilson, many of you may have heard of, then started looking at it as something that's perhaps genetically based, which was a big jump, because it means that the potential is there regardless of how what your experience is. The potential is there for this to be realized. So now it's just generally used in everyday terms as meaning a human affinity for nature. So, and we do connect with nature in many ways. We observe it and study it. We use it as a design motif. Think of all the NFL football helmets or the baseball caps. We sometimes imitate it, and we certainly totemize it. We know that nature can be beautiful. Everyone knows that. We know that nature can be majestic. We know that it can be captivating, in this case, mutually. We held that pose for about 15 seconds. By the way, all the photos here I've taken in Arlington, with the exception of a few at the very end, which are renderings from development projects that I wanted to show. And nature can be your calendar. Vincent probably knows which tree this is. It's in C.F. Smith.
Oh, it's a sugar maple.
Mm-hmm. But you probably couldn't pin it down to more than just a month, I think, in this case. But nature can also be enlightening and teach you things. You can hear and see a bullfrog croak. Look at the standing sound waves on the surface of the water around the frog. And it can provide some pretty interesting optical displays. This is the eastern amberwing, the only locally native dragonfly that has the membranes of the wings are evenly tinted. So it gives a stained glass window kind of shadow. The rock. And you can learn a physics lesson. So everybody knows arachnids will have a cephalothorax and an abdomen. And all 8 legs are attached to the cephalothorax. You can see that the mass of the abdomen, as it's cantilevered out the back, you can see that the distribution of that weight in the surface tension circles underneath each foot, with the front ones being smaller, showing less weight distributed there, going around to the back ones, which are egg-shaped and larger, showing the weight of the abdomen being supported on those legs. And nature can be just quiet, and we all need that. But it's not the only thing going on, and that's where we get to biophilia as an important concept. The urban paradox is that humans evolved in and with nature, and we're still attuned to nature naturally. And that's what biophilia is about. Humans perceive natural stimuli through all the senses. And the stimuli cause genetically based responses that are measurable in the nervous system, the endocrine system, and the circulatory system. Humans have adapted to live in large concentrations, as we know, as we are here. And urbanism is now a dominant feature of contemporary human existence around the globe. However, urban life and urban development can separate inhabitants substantially, if not entirely, from nature. That's a problem. This one was not taken in Arlington, obviously. So the biophilic city concept is one where urban jurisdictions recognize the importance of natural spaces and places for its residents, and they intentionally designate natural spaces and features as a priority in planning and development and public infrastructure. Biophilic community is one where natural space is everyday space for everyone. Opportunities to experience nature is available and regularly practiced. So leaders and residents around the world are increasingly appreciative of the value and vulnerability of our urban natural spaces. And many cities are formalizing this as an expression of identity and also a guideline for land use and development. And that's sort of where we're moving. So what are the fundamentals for a biophilic city? Ensuring that nature is a key element in all the plans and policies and practices and communications, the way we talk about it. Investing in nature is a priority, including both protection and preservation of existing spaces, but also acquisition, and also adding value to the developments that we create through biophilic design. And finally, educating the public and encouraging actions to enhance natural features in the built environment, so that these elements are included in private development and residential landscapes. Do spend some time looking into that. The Biophilic Cities Project, the University of Virginia, and the project provides research reports and journal and professional resources, films, partner city profiles, and a collaboration platform for people all across the world in all walks of life that are interested in biophilic principles and growth. Here are some of the cities around the world that have already become partners in the Biophilic City Network. The Public Spaces Master Plan, which the board adopted in 2019 in April, had a recommendation to look into this for Arlington. And yeah, within 8 months, Arlington had done it. So how biophilia matters. Here's really at the heart of how things tie together and why it's so important. So biophilic planning and design is human-centered. It's complementary to many other things, as we'll see, but it is human-centered. It's about the benefits to individuals. And these benefits are validated by extensive research, including some things that were not really done 30 years ago. new areas of research and new techniques for research about the relationship between humans and the natural habitats that they're in. So it brings quality of life benefits to individuals, but it also boosts the quality of place goals for. We're going to look at each one of these categories quickly. In some cases, I might not read all of it, but you can take a look. So health and well-being is literally and figuratively the heart of it. Direct health benefits of nature to all individuals. They're measurable and documented in an expanding array of research. Has beneficial effects on blood pressure, cortisol levels, that's the stress hormone, and heart rate. Enhances resilience to stress, anxiety, and fatigue, promotes wellness, mental focus, cognitive restoration. That's a form of resilience. And some of the documentation on this already is that medical patients benefit by more rapid recovery, reduced need for pain medication, and better emotional state. That that also applies to the family members and medical staff that work with people in the hospital because they're under stress too, and they need restoration. And then, of course, the medical system itself benefits because of lower patient stays. Start cycling people through more quickly, less staff burnout, and better retention. Education and child development. Some of you have heard of the Last Child in the Woods by Richard Liu. It's widely known that classroom productivity benefits from biophilic spaces, and they're sometimes indoors as well as outdoors. We'll see that in a little bit. Nature can provide unique opportunities to explore and discover, and that contributes to self-esteem and self-confidence as people venture out of the box and out into the woods. Nature is dynamic and complex, so cognitively, this is very important. Perception-wise, it's very important. Nourishing creativity, curiosity. The irregularity of nature is extremely important in creating flexible and acute cognitive skills. Regular outdoor activity can help with attention deficit and anxiety and improve mental focus, but also substantively for just all kids, awareness of nature teaches stewardship and responsibility, about caring, about empathy, and urban nature is an effective lab for many classroom subjects. Climate and environment. So biophilic features support all kinds of climate and environmental goals, and those are listed down below. Biophilic design also brings benefits to individuals, and not only benefits them directly in individual, but also encourages behaviors that are environmentally friendly. Many technical standards with respect to energy and environment can be achieved without being biophilic, but the natural solutions typically enhance effectiveness and reduce cost and make responses more resilient and adaptive. Yes, that's Vincent and the previous chair of this commission.
Nora behind. Yeah, it's Nora and Steve Campbell.
Steve Campbell, yeah. Nature closer to people means people closer to nature, and that proximity brings awareness, discovery, learning, and appreciation, which then creates caring and stewardship. These are all very important. Biodiversity is a key indicator of ecological and environmental health, of course, and citizen science matters to residents and to science. Economics of business, this is a pretty big category, and it's very important. Presence of nature has significant economic value and can be measured. It contributes to employee and student performance, improving results. It fosters profit enhancements due to improved employee recruitment, retention, absenteeism, presentism, and productivity. If you don't know, presentism is when you're there, you're actually there. You're not zoned out, burned out, or otherwise not performing at your typical good level. It improves community desirability for new investment and corporate location decisions. And it's better for retail sales and customer satisfaction. We've recognized for decades that nature sells, but we didn't have the science-based explanations for it. Think about if you watch broadcast TV, how many advertisements you see, whether it's pharmaceuticals or automobiles, are always out in beautiful nature scenes. It's the background, driving around the country, and out in the parks, whatever it is. Nature is way overrepresented in the as the context for commercials compared to what the commercials are actually about. The one on the top there is Clarendon Crossing, and the one on the bottom is Met Park in Pentagon City. And of course, nature is quantifiably beneficial to property values and tax revenue. And finally, social cohesion and community participation. Sharing nature produces common interests, and natural spaces and places are preferred for outdoor social activities. Natural walkways, paths, and parks encourage walking and biking, both for transportation and recreation. Value of nature stimulates community engagement about our county and its livability, and valuing nature promotes volunteerism and stewardship, which improves outcomes and lowers direct public costs. And there are plenty of people in this room and watching it all around with similar interests who do that every week. So why biophilia matters to us? We have a desirable place to live and work, and we have a natural heritage, which is one of our most important assets, but we're facing serious challenges in balancing population growth, development, and climate change with commitment to residents for natural spaces that they need and want. Here are just a few basic stats. We're projected by Arlington County itself to grow 60,000 by 2050. That's 25 years, less than 25 years, with 27% increase in density and 30% increase in housing units. What type is TBD? So much of the growth, of course, will happen in the primary development corridors, but almost everywhere will have some impact from these changes. So we have a number of policy categories, from climate change, transportation, housing, education, health. Will be facing more and more challenges, and can benefit from natural solutions in biophilic design. So we must incorporate biophilic principles of nature into our policy plans. We want to navigate the future in harmony with nature, and keep that phrase in mind. So I'm just going to let you read this. This is the actual resolved section of the biophilic resolution from December 2019. You'll see this written in a number of places, but occasionally the order is not quite the same, but this is the original order. So the rest of this is going to be looking at resources and examples of things that have happened since the resolution. This is the top photo is the Biophilic Cities Project webpage. And if you went to the second item on the banner up there on the network and scroll down under that one, you would see a button that's for partner cities. And if you click that, you get a whole array of different cities, each with a profile. And the bottom picture is the homepage of the Arlington profile. This is the Arlington County website. Now, this has been up for about just almost a year, I guess, right? So this is the homepage for the Arlington website. One of which, the bottom center one, takes you to the other webpage that we just looked at. I want to show a few examples of county documents that are already have biophilic content in them. So the community energy plan, which was adopted in September of 2019, but they did an updated version of it after that. And so we have goal 2, policy 4 at the bottom, which says use the principle of biophilic design to harness the ability of nature to mitigate our need for energy. And this, some of the text, I just excerpted some phrases, but I think it's pretty interesting that, you know, the middle one there is Arlington's trees store over 180,000 metric tons of carbon in trunks, branches, and tools. That means when we lose trees, we're losing carbon storage. And every year, as those trees grow, 8,700 metric tons is added to their storage. So that's a pretty big deal. The one right after that, I think is important for all of us that do the SBRCs. Healthy soil is a significant component for canopy management, not just because it's important for the trees to survive, but it's a substantial amount of carbon is actually stored in the ground, not in the trunks. And then the second to the last one there, trees save an estimated $1 million per year in avoided energy costs because of shading. Heat island effects. Pentagon City sector plan. Whoops. Speaking of trees, Pentagon City sector plan has some pretty substantial content. This is page 102. And it's interesting because it sort of defines biophilic design for that document, but it also talks about how the mutually reinforcing benefits of the elements that are typically considered sustainable design and resilience. So it shows how you know, these things are different. The key for sustainable and resilient is that they're technical measures that can happen whether or not people benefit from it. But biophilic is all about the people being able to benefit from it. But they all are aimed in the same direction. Of course, we know that FNRP pretty well. And Strategic Direction 1 does talk about tree canopy and natural areas and biophilic features. Langston Boulevard Area Plan also talks about fostering biophilic design and green infrastructure. And I put in the public spaces item number 9 just for John. Because it specifically calls out at the end of that, incorporating biophilic design, it calls out for existing and planned new transportation networks throughout the place.
I almost put that picture in my little report. There are also a whole bunch of the plan that illustrations.
Culture and Historic Resources Plan, which, you know, probably most of us are not spending too much time with, but it does also incorporate biophilic city resolution and talks about how sustainability and biophilic design help interpret historic locations and help demonstrate how those areas are, you know, more the way, the natural way that they would have been in historic times when they're taken care of that way. The 100 years ago, Arlington was a summer getaway community for most people. And then here are 3 other examples. Chesapeake Bay Preservation Plan talks about how biophilic design has a lot of overlap with the water quality goals, which is what that particular plan is about by statute. The transportation plan, so far we have a vision and goals. It was good, but not easy to get nature notably referenced in the goals. But now that we're led to the next level, we just need to keep pushing on that. And the comprehensive plan, where the use of the American Planning Association guiding principles includes harmony with nature, and this is the definition of that. That the contributions to natural resources to human well-being are explicitly recognized and valued, and that maintaining their health is a primary objective. That's a pretty bold statement for an overarching principle. So here are some documents that are good for reference on these kinds of things. If you go to terrapinbrightgreen.com, it's an international consulting firm. They have a new edition of the economics of biophilia, and the content table of contents is on the right to show these different categories, some of which I referred to. And they have substantial sections summarizing and explaining the research from a number of different sources that support these kinds of findings. They also have a publication here, Patterns of Biophilic Design, which we can look at. But also I wanted to show that they pay attention again to interior design as well as outdoors. 14 patterns of biophilic design actually have 15 now. I won't go through them all because unless someone wants to ask later, but they added awe as a pattern. It's when you find things that take you out of your thinking out of the box, really take you out of your expectations and your familiarity. And so now there are actually 15. That's why they say 12. So here's some examples that when you look at the patterns, there are 3 basic categories: nature in the space, natural analogs, nature of the space, the location of it. So we have analogs in the upper left, where this is imitating the grasses flowing in the wind every time. This is 143 Rhode Island Avenue in DC. Those are bamboo stalks about 12 to 16 feet long with little concrete cone weights on the ends of them. So every time a bus goes by, or every time the breeze blows, they all wave in the breeze. That was for the Bloomingdale Art Month near where Vince used to live. Cliff Palace at Mesa Verde shows the prospect and refuge, and I'm sure quite a few visual and non-visual elements of biophilic design. Bottom left is Frank Lloyd Wright's Falling Water design, which is very famous, but it incorporates so many of them. Even without having the list of 14 patterns, he got a lot of them in there. And I imagine that particularly the sound and the smell of water as it aerates were big elements there. And the bottom one on the right is Love Run Community Center, to show that you can have natural analogs even when it's made out of copper. It looks warm, it looks natural in some lights, in other lights it doesn't. Here's some county developments, including Gateway Park, which is now approved. The land that is already there, but it's going to be redesigned. The Long Branch Aquatic Center on the right, Long Bridge, yeah, sorry, which is 100% bird-friendly glass. And then the Lover Community Center again, this showing the idea of prospect looking out. But the other thing about it is that much of that building is designed with materials that are natural, which is another type of natural analog, including much of the furniture and paneling in the lower level is made from the trees that had to be cut down on that site during the construction. And then the Heights building, which is HP Woodlawn and has the natural roofs. And then we have these are all projects that were approved by the county board, but not yet built, but Land-Based C in Crystal City, 2500 Wilson Boulevard. It's just a couple blocks east of the Whole Foods, if you know where that is. And of course, the Amazon Helix, and then Arva, which is at Pershing and 50. Historic site. The historical part that's saved is the sign in front, but it's got a lot of biophilic landscape. And then, since you've all been watching the Olympics recently, Milan does have a pretty spectacular biophilic building. It's about 26 stories. And I put in the photo on the right to show that these are not just like a potted plant on a balcony. These are substantial cantilevered balconies with substantial vegetation in each one. I'm sure they're quite inexpensive to me.
Does that count for
Anyway.
tree canopy? Does that count for tree canopy coverage?
Get more than 100% if you're not putting it across my desk.
So I'll just let you take a quick look at these as a final summary. It wraps it all up. I'll just say that the two trees on the Long Branch stream that flows into 4 Mile Run near the nature center, finally with a flood, those two fell into the this was taken about 2018. That's it.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. So anyway, that gives you some background. And we did get, a good deal of support, and Jen Fioretti was also instrumental in helping push through the biophilic cities resolution, which is great because she's, as she discussed at our last meeting, with the climate plan as well, that is an integral part of it. So anyway, I just want to make sure that we were all sort of on the same page and everybody had that background material. So anyway, do you turn the lights back up again?
Yeah. Let me unshare.
Okay. So anyway, I want to welcome Justin Wilson, who is, thank you so much for being with us. And do you want to come sit up here? Let's
So wherever you want me to.
grab another chair and roll this out. Too close to thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. This is a pleasant surprise that we get. We're so happy to have pay attention with what's going on and I know she's online as well too. So, and she's given us some great background on what's going on in the parks. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for the invitation. Great to be here. My name is Justin Wilson. I'm the executive director of Nova Parks, the Northern Virginia Regional Park Authority. We are a proud to own 37 parks across our 6 member jurisdictions, including Arlington County. In Arlington County, of course, Potomac Overlook Park and Upton Hill Regional Park, as well. And part of the reason I'm here is the WNOD Trail, which is 45 miles stretching from the county of Arlington all the way up to Roosevelt County. So what I'm here to talk about a little bit is you may have seen some coverage on this earlier in the month, a new memorandum of understanding that we just entered into with Dominion Energy. And so this is really the culmination of a long and occasionally bumpy process on the part of Nova Parks and Dominion in coming to an arrangement where we believe we both can work together to manage the vegetation along the trail. To give all of you a little bit of, for those who haven't been following this discussion, a little bit of history. And again, I've been at Nova Parks for 4 months. So this is, most of this history occurred prior to my arrival. But the Nova Parks and Dominion had an MOU that dated back a couple of decades that spelled out how vegetation should be managed along the trail. A bit ago, Dominion decided that that MOU no longer applied, and they essentially ripped it up. And as part of a project along the trail, they had gone in and removed a significant amount of trees and other vegetation along a 4-mile stretch done in Vienna. You know, we have a unique relationship with Dominion along the trail. So we obviously own the trail. They have an easement, and they run. They have a lot of electric equipment infrastructure along the trail, and the trail has a dual purpose. It is not only one of the most well-loved and visited recreation facilities in the entire region, some might say the country, but it also is an important piece of infrastructure to keep the lights on all across this region. And so we have, throughout the history of the trail and our stewardship of it, have worked to balance those interests. And that's why, obviously, the MOU going away for some period of time was a pretty distressing result for us. And so there was a lot of community advocacy. I know folks in Arlington were involved, and folks along the trail, elected officials, appointed officials, a variety of community groups were very involved in pointing out to Dominion and others that the need for responsible management of the natural resources along the trail was vitally important. And I think as a result of all of that, we were able to enter into a new negotiation for an MOU with Dominion, and that concluded at the beginning of February with the execution of a new MOU. I'm going to give you a little detail on kind of where the agreement is. It's a long agreement, 35 pages. You're welcome to read it if you have some problems falling asleep. But it is an incredibly detailed agreement that basically we tried very hard to leave nothing to chance and really spell out not only how plants and trees and shrubbery should be managed on the trail, but how the community and local governments should be communicated with as a result of that. I think our overriding theme in this agreement is no surprises. You know, part of, I think, what made folks so distressed about what occurred is that it was not something that people anticipated, and it was certainly a very jarring appearance. And then we worked really hard to not just figure out how we're going to work together, but also leave the trail better than we found it. And so a major focus of the new MOU is around how do we improve the ecology along the trail? How do we do more invasive removal? How do we introduce more native plants and do so in a responsible way throughout the trail? So what the new MOU does is it divides the trail into a series of zones. Those zones are based on both topography as well as proximity to some of the electric infrastructure. Obviously, areas that are closest to the sensitive infrastructure are the places where you're not going to be able to see big canopy trees. But the places that are farther from that infrastructure are places where Dominion is going to allow those trees to become mature and remain there for generations. And so I think trying to strike that balance was vitally important. And then we laid out a really detailed protocol for when work has to occur, because I think we recognize that over time, Dominion is going to continue to expand, modify, adjust equipment that is on the trail. And we have tried to spell out a system for how, first of all, they are communicating that to the public, communicating that to us, and communicating that to the appropriate local governments, and then working in partnership to spell out exactly how those impacts will be managed. So where we can minimize disruption of existing and mature trees and shrubbery, we're going to do that. Where trees and shrubbery have to be removed, there is a one-for-one replacement protocol that's now spelled out in the MOU. If not right on the location because of infrastructure sensitivity, in the near proximity. And so I would argue that the MOU that we have entered into is perhaps stronger and more detailed than what was ripped up. And I think that that happened because of a lot of great community advocacy and partnership from folks all along the trail. And I think we ended up in a really good place. Now the test is implementing, right? And so we are now entering this new phase. Dominion has already begun replanting in the areas that were impacted by the kind of clear cutting activity that occurred over those 4 miles. We are working with them to manage those areas and make sure the native plants can survive, and we can continue to do invasive management in those areas and support the growth in those areas, as well as Dominion has provided resources as part of this agreement, where we will do additional plantings along the trail. And then we're committing, and I'm going to be proposing my budget in a couple days here to my board, and we'll be committing to expanding our invasive management resources across the trail. And so I think we're going to be working to expand what we're doing as well. So I think we recognize it's a partnership. The analogy I use frequently is Dominion and Nova Parks are roommates on the trail, and anyone who's been in a roommate situation knows long term, if you end up fighting with your roommate for long periods of time, it doesn't go well. And so we have worked to come to an understanding with our roommates along the trail so that we can work and manage this really precious resource for the entire region. So that's basically what we have done. We have a lot of materials on our website. If you go to novaparks.com, you can read. We have an overview, one pager about the agreement, some of the detail, press release, and all that's up there. But I'm also happy to answer any questions that you might have this evening about that or anything else we do. Yeah.
So I know Dominion cut down some mature canopy trees.
Yes.
What about, is there anything in the MOU about replacing the trees that might interfere with the lines with understory trees?
Yeah, so there is a very detailed, and if you want to actually read the full MOU, I'm happy to send it to you. Just drop me a line and I'll get you that. But there is a detailed protocol down to species, caliper, et cetera, for when something has to be removed. This is where it will be replaced. This is how it will be replaced. And that is again, that's a partnership. So they are going to work with us to spell out kind of, hey, we have to build this here, and so we're going to have to take out these trees. There's an inventory done. We're looking at caliper. We're looking at height, and then we're replacing it accordingly. And in a lot of cases, I think those who are familiar with the trail, some parts of the trail from an ecological perspective aren't great. And so I think we have an opportunity to improve what we got on the trail right now. And so I think, again, more invasive removal, more introduction of native plants, but we can get to the species list and you can take a look at that and have an understanding of how it's protocol. My predecessor, I think, used the term color by numbers. And I think we very much tried to be very specific in this agreement so that there's not a lot of ambiguity when these situations come up.
Oh, thanks for that explanation. So it might be less surprises in the future, but I still fear we're going to be in for a shock. So perhaps you can help me out.
Yeah.
This group. I live in Boulevard Manors and have on one side part of the trail and the other side of one park. And after we had two presentations on this now, at least one I recall. And right, and it was explained to us the necessity. I think there was a dimension of concern of like this has all been done to support new demands of data centers. So that was a little bit annoying one hand. And the other is when I went back there on the trail, looked at her presentation, and you kind of looked at the trees on either side of that trail down by 4 Mile Run. You kind of like a lot of those could perhaps fall into the lines they're talking about. So that's why back to the shock factor.
Yeah.
All the above is good.
Yeah.
But if the criteria is not having any of those branches near one of those high tension lines in a wind or a summer sag, it still seems like we're going to lose a lot of trees. At least move on going south and probably north as well, unless you could tell me different.
Yeah, I mean, I could, as far as the specific area and kind of how Dominion would approach those specific areas, I'm happy to kind of follow up with you and look at specific areas and kind of understand how they would approach it. I think generally speaking, Dominion is going to try to prevent, they have an obligation to maintain reliability, right? And so if there is vegetation that is threatening infrastruccture, and they've done this in the past all over the region, right? They're going to proactively come in and do trimming and removals to try to protect that infrastructure. This MOU doesn't provide any invitation for that or any kind of new permission for that. The way we have structured this is that we use a cutoff, which is probably familiar for those of you who have dealt with anything in Virginia related to stormwater. We use a cutoff of 2,500 square feet or less. And so if they are impacting an area, they have a project that's coming in and impacting an area of 2,500 square feet or more, there's a much more significant process, pre-approval plans that have to be reviewed, public notifications, et cetera. If it is something smaller, there is a process and a protocol, but it's a more informal process where they can come in and we work with them. And again, we're going to try to make sure that the notifications are out and everyone gets notified adjacent and that there's an opportunity to express concerns if there's something like that.
I appreciate that, but just physically, for example, where the 4 Mile Run trail goes by the Fremont Trail, there's a long hillside here which has very mature trees on it.
Yep.
And eyeballing it, it's like they're just going to do that whole hillside because all those trees could potentially sway into the line. So at this point, we should have a little more of an objective assessment of what are the areas we will be informed. So we won't be surprised. We'll still be shocked, if you will.
Yeah, again,
I can't remember if that was one of the presentations or not. They discussed the areas. So I apologize if please, Rob.
So maybe if I could just follow up on Josh's point, because I'm kind of making the same point, but maybe a little spin on it. So, we had two presentations, one by Dominion last May, one by one of your great staffers in October.
Yes.
And when Dominion came to talk to us, they talked about minimum vegetative clearance distance, MVCD.
Yep.
And it's awesome that you came up with a better communication strategy. I think they really screwed up and now they won't.
Yeah.
I'm glad that they respected Nova Parks enough to want to get into an MOU with you. So I think that's all great. But the bottom line is that the sense I got was that they changed their policy in terms of what gets cut down to protect wires. And one of the statistics that you gave us was Arlington could lose 11 to 22 acres of trees under that criterion. And so the big $64,000 or more than question for me is Arlington still going to lose 11 to 22 acres of trees just with better communication ahead of time?
Yeah.
I would suggest that Josh's point is that you don't need to take down every tree.
Sure.
Because their policy's been in effect since like the early 2000s or even earlier, and trees haven't been falling and knocking down wires willy-nilly along the trail. So I would hope that there could be some discussion about their criteria for what gets cut down, and maybe some negotiation about they don't have to do quite so much cutting.
And
healthier versus not, and things like along those lines.
Right.
Let me say two things and then kind of kick the ball a little bit. So one, I'm not speaking for Dominion, right? So I'm speaking for Nova Parks, and they need to speak for themselves on their protocols. And I also don't regulate Dominion, and I think that's an important thing. The State Corporation Commission does, the General Assembly. those are the entities who have the ability to police how they do things. This is a voluntary agreement that we have entered into with MOU, with Dominion as a result of this MOU. There is, while I think it certainly helped that we had elected officials in Richmond and elected officials across the region that were helping apply pressure to Dominion to enter into this agreement. Ultimately, there's no policing of that through any legal mechanism. So I think to the extent you all have concerns about how Dominion's protocols for removing vegetation proximate to electric infrastructure, that is something that you're going to need to take up with Richmond and the State Corporation Commission. They are the ones who are in the power to be able to deal with that. I can explain what I understand, but I can't vouch for it. I think, again, Dominion is held responsible by Richmond for reliability, and they certainly will, left to their own devices, take an approach that is reducing their risk, and that probably goes farther than any of us would like about removal of infrastructure, removal of vegetation. I think what we are trying to structure is, first of all, where that has to happen, they will be replaced. And when they are replaced in a place that they are going to be allowed to become mature and not threaten infrastructure in the future. And then as we do those replacements, they're going to be native. We're going to be more mindful of how we control invasives. And so I think we will improve the ecology over time of the trail.
Just one more.
Yeah.
I think that your advice is well taken, that we're not going to work out what the criteria are for taking down trees with you.
Yeah.
With respect to the position, the power, the levers that you have and what you do. My personal view is that I'm still very concerned that a lot of trees will be taken down when they don't really need to. Mm-hmm. And I think 4 Mile Run, and I have to tell you this, 4 Mile Run going through Arlington is a jewel.
Sure.
And will fundamentally change the nature of that jewel. It won't be a jewel perhaps anymore if that many trees are taken down.
No question.
So I think one thing that I just wanted to mention to you is what I took away from the Dominion presentation back in May last year was that there was no edict from Richmond saying you must change your standards. Mm-hmm. They made a decision to kind of maybe cover their derrieres. They made a decision to change the way they interpret what's been on the books for decades. Mm-hmm. So I think that tells me that there is leeway on how this is interpreted. That they don't have a new edict telling them to be more stringent. They made the policy decision to do that. So I think the issue to me is still open about whether Arlington's trees along 4 Mile Run are in danger or not.
Well, and I think the other thing I would suggest, and I think, again, tying back to the MOU, part of the purpose of this structure and this agreement is to create a bit of a barrier to entry for some of that activity. Because without the MOU, they can do that, and that's the end of the conversation, right? The trees are gone, and that's the end of the conversation. Now, under this MOU, in order for them to do what you just described, there is going to have to be a plan, a consultation process, and a replacement process. And so that is not cheap, and that is time consuming. And so my hope is that will also provide kind of an opportunity for Dominion to do exactly what you are saying, absent any legal restriction, to say, is this something we really need to remove? Because if we do, we're going to have to go through all this.
It's a great,
and that's kind of how we're thinking.
Hypothetically, on the point of risk, there is also risk management. There are risk management protocols for forestry to assign low, medium, high, extreme risk to trees. One hopes that Dominion takes that into account, like if everything can fall, right? But if a tree is at a low risk of falling and hitting the target, they should probably consider not taking it.
I'm looking at a draft version. I don't know how close this is to like, but there's like there's a section outlining the distinction between what's clearing and what's like a major maintenance operation. And I think this points out the component you're talking about, 2,500 square feet, but also the added components of crews working for multiple days or removal of 5 or more native trees within a DBH of 8 feet. So is there any sort of agreed upon, I guess, communication structure, like if they want to pursue any clearing activities, is that outlined in like the final version of the MOU?
Yeah, and I don't know what that is.
It's just something that came up.
Date of April of 25.
Yeah.
That's, we just, the agreement is,
Yeah, it's, I don't know how close this is to the final version.
yeah,
but
that's.
It's just something that came up.
That's before I even start. So,
Okay.
I sent around the press release.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
okay.
yeah, and if you want, again, we didn't, just put out the MOU, but I'm happy to send it if someone wants a copy. So, the answer to your question is yes, it gets into considerable detail on, this is what constitutes a major clearing activity. This is what's required, for that. This is, the scenario would be, if Dominion was coming in and putting in completely new equipment, not repairing or adding to existing equipment, but if they had some obligation to build something completely new. That is a major project that requires a whole level of consultation and planning, and replacement, that is not trivial. So,
Yeah, I think if you're able to like relay that, the final version to us, I mean, that was one of the complaints I had to the Dominion representative when they were kind of outlining this is you may have these agreements, but they're not publicly available. So I think like if you're trying to translate this to public acceptance, public understanding, having those documents available is going to go a long way to help that.
yeah, we have what we put on our site, is we did like a one pager that kind of summarizes at a high level the details of the plan. Again, we're happy, I served for 14 years in Alexandria, so I understand, I understand what Arlington and Alexandria requires. But we tried to put a version that was, easily digestible. We're happy to give you. Yes, I understand.
It's only 30 pages. That's not bad.
Yeah.
Yes, as someone,
Late reading.
as a resident told me during COVID, they said, data is how nerds cope. So.
Yeah, well, I've got a lot of questions. I'll try to distill them into one, but so you said before, but I kind of missed it. Who owns the trail? Is it,
We-
no, you
No,
own
it's on
the,
the track.
you own the
But they
trail
have an easement,
and they have an easement?
They owned it, Dominion Power owned it first.
correct?
Oh,
And then,
yeah, yeah.
so they
Okay.
retained.
Yeah.
Okay.
Retain their easement.
And then my second question is,
Railroad owned it.
whether, if anybody in Richmond has really looked at this to see if their policies are legitimately, legitimate.
Their Dominion's policies?
Yeah.
I
They have a
I have no idea.
legitimate legal reason for doing this? or-
That's a Dominion Richmond State Corporation Commission
Okay,
question.
well,
I
then that
can't
brings
answer
me-
that. I can't answer that.
Okay, well, then that's kind of ties into my next concern is that Dominion, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like they can just do whatever they want. They don't have to do environmental assessments or anything like that, right?
I can't speak for Dominion.
Oh.
So, I can't speak for Dominion and I can't speak for the legal framework that they operate under. So
Okay.
what I can tell you is Dominion is regulated by the State Corporation Commission in Richmond. State Corporation Commission applies laws that are adopted by the General Assembly and approved by the governor. So
Secondly, in their presentation, so that is, just reading their presentation, they speak about the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission's regulations on Dominion, which have become more stringent in the past few
Because
decades.
they referenced like some root shutdown. Some branch fell on a tree.
Yeah.
Like Connecticut, it's supposed to shut down. And so.
And then they get fined by FERC. So.
Yeah.
And
there's some things-
PJM,
But you're asking about whether
Well-
they have the right to do things around there.
Well, but I understand that you can't speak for them. So
Yeah.
moving on to my next
Yeah, sure.
concern is that, it sounds like to me that they can kind of do what they want. They don't have to do environmental impact statements and things like that. Because piggybacking on what Josh and Bob were saying, the 4 Mile Run, section of 4 Mile Run that runs through Arlington and probably through parts of Fairfax too. You know, it's a stream habitat. It's, you know, so the things, I read the press release. I haven't read the MOU, obviously. But, you know, just talking about, oh, well, you know, we're gonna plant native plant pollinators, which is fine, but it's more than just pollinating insects. You know, there are hawks that nest in those canopy trees. Understory trees and shrubs don't serve that same ecological purpose. You know, the hawks help contain or limit rodent populations and things like that. So this, you know, has a cascading effect. And there's noise pollution that's going to happen when the trees are cut down.
Sure.
You know, just all kinds of things so it's not just pollinators,
Sure.
but it sounds like none of this is being taken into.
Well, no, it's certainly being taken into account. I think again, as I mentioned earlier, the structure of the MOU is to divide the totality of the trail, the 45 miles of the trail, in various zones. And so those zones are dictated by some of the conditions as well as the electric equipment, so that in many of the zones, we can grow and support canopy trees without disturbance from Dominion. And basically what Dominion is saying is that in these zones, we're gonna allow those trees to grow, and we're gonna replant in a lot of situations new trees in those areas so that we can continue to develop the ecology on the park. So I think, but there are zones that are going to be adjacent to that electric equipment
And that's the parts
that's where we're not going to see some of that taller stuff. And so I think that's the balance. That's the balance.
Well, that's the parts that
Yeah.
I'm concerned about
Sure.
anyway, and I think some others are.
And I get it.
Because, you know, a lot of that is running through Arlington, but
It's running through the entire,
well, more so, I
it's the
mean,
entirety of the trail. So I was out in the trail in Herndon today and walking portions of the trail there. And so, yeah, no, there is.
well, I mean, especially in Arlington, a lot of these
Yeah.
trees are much closer to the power lines than they are further out. So, you know,
I would challenge that contention, but there are trees that are very close to the power lines along the entire 45-mile trail. So
well, I'll make this my last question.
Yeah.
What's to prevent them from tearing up this MOU?
nothing, absolutely nothing.
And
But
what
let me just say, again, they did not need to enter into this. They entered into it, I think, because, I won't try to characterize their intentions, but it certainly was a result of a lot of the community advocacy that happened, and there were bills filed in Richmond that would attempt to regulate parts of what we put in this MOU. So I think there was definitely messages sent by legislators in Richmond that if this is not successful, there is a backstop potentially that would occur. And so I think what I would offer as an answer to that concern, because that's certainly a concern that we had in entering into this agreement, is we did a joint press release. We did a lot of announcement of this MOU, and that was joint with Dominion. And we worked very carefully with Dominion to roll this out to the community. There is a form of public accountability in the fact that we have rolled this out together. But a lot of this is how we implement it. And so I think the test of this is going to be over the next couple years as we encounter minor maintenance projects and particularly big infrastructure projects. Luckily, most of them, to the extent you were talking about how things are different in Arlington versus other parts, most of the big infrastructure projects, they're not going to happen around here. Those are in the Loudon portions of the trail and Leesburg and other parts of the trail. But smaller infrastructure projects will happen in this area. And I think that'll be the real test of this agreement. And so we'll know if this is successful over the next couple of years. It's not going to be a one day kind of thing. Something.
One thing I would just add to that too, because when Dominion came here and did the presentation, and it's kind of like, yeah, we don't, doesn't matter. But the fact that Nova Parks got all 6 jurisdictions to pass a resolution, all within a week, I think it was. So, yay for folks at Nova Parks for making that happen and putting that public pressure on it. I mean, I think that's really how it's incumbent upon those of us who care about these things to really stay on top of this. You were great, well done. To really be following some of the implementation of it too, because that's what created the MOU.
Yes.
So gonna,
Who's gonna plant these plants and maintain them and stuff?
It depends. So we do a lot of maintenance ourselves. We have 12,500 acres of land that we are stewards of, and so we will do a lot of the maintenance ourselves. Dominion has used a couple different landscaping firms to do some of the new plantings that they've been doing. And they've done that in consultation with us as well as with some of the local arborists in the local jurisdictions along the way that they've worked with. So they've worked with a couple different firms to do the plantings. The maintenance going forward is going to be our responsibility. We manage that. So. And one thing I didn't mention earlier, and I just want to be clear about, is this is all for planned work. Obviously, if we have had a storm event, a hurricane and things are blown out, Dominion has the ability to go in and do what they need to do to restore power, and they obviously will do that. That's not what's covered in this agreement. This is for planned stuff. So just to be clear. I'm not my meeting, so I can't call it. I'll let you.
Yeah.
Thanks for all that, and I hope, kudos for getting this together, because in the sense of, we had a little experience with Dominion in our neighborhood when there was an accident at 50 Manchester corner, or electric lines went down. Of course, we all want electricity, Great Stuff fixed it, but they knocked down a few cedars that had been planted there years ago, and they had no plans to replant or immediate area. It's a 6-month struggle. They could plant 5,000 over BJ's. They kind of bought Home Depot. So if you've gotten out some leverage on them to replant, but I'd also add, even under storm circumstances.
Yeah.
That said, just move the conversation larger group, because I'm more of the presentation by Dominion when they hear, and it's in this context, of course, managing risk to not have your profits and not be fined, what have you. And if a tree falls on it with these updated regulations, they now could be dinged for $1 million a day or $5 million a year. So it's like, yeah, we all understand that, and we all want our power. On the hand, the trees along the trail are jewels to us, and worth millions to us. We do every day along this trail. So I'm kind of like, it's all being transferred to make sure they make their profit versus 10 minute sessions here in your presentation of how valuable these natural resources solutions are. And people live here, both in a financial sense as well as the biophilic sense. So I just want to lay that on the table. I can appreciate they gotta get power, they're gonna get dinged, we all want power, but it's kind of like, can they really, they can probably manage a day or two out, $2 million. It's a Fortune 500 company. We're never going to replace those trees. We're all going to use that. The jewel we have could turn into a piece of coal. So I just offer that as a general observation.
Yeah, just one quick question. So do you have any staff that is sort of dedicated to holding Dominion accountable to this? For example, do you have any sort of baseline documentation on existing trees? And so, I'm sure, the layperson might not know every single tree along the trail. And so what's to say Dominion doesn't cut down one tree and nobody ever knows about it and it's never replanted? So just.
Yeah. So let me answer your question immediately, and then I'll go back to the second part of the question. So we have four staff that manage the entirety of the 45-mile trail, right? We are 37 regional parks. We have 150 full-time staff, another 200 part-time, full-time equivalents, part-time or seasonal employees mostly. So we are not a huge organization. We are a small, very nimble staff. So to answer your question, do I have someone whose job it is to hold Dominion accountable? No, not at all. However, one of the features of the MOU is that if there was an impact, they have to provide initially, the initial part of that conversation is they do an inventory, and so they are documenting what is there, and there's protocols obviously for how that occurs, and they are doing that, providing that before we even start the conversation. So that is part of the MOU.
Thank you.
And Bill?
So I live in the shadow of Potomac Overlook, and I really thank you for that park. For decades, I've loved that park. One thing I want to know is how are you going to work with Dominion and possibly any of the county staffs to make sure that the trees they put in aren't going to be a problem? They're going to stay short enough that they don't harm the lines.
Well, so I think this is the vision behind these zones, dividing the trail in zones, so that where we are planting and the species that we are planting is an appropriate place. And so we ideally, if we follow what we've laid out, and again, this is a detailed MOU, if we follow what we've laid out, we should not be in a situation where 10 years from now, 15 years from now, they're coming back and saying, yeah, we got to trim this tree, because we shouldn't have put it in the wrong place in the first place. So
That's good.
that's the idea.
More red buds and fridge.
Yeah, in certain parts of the trail, for sure. That is true. That is true.
There's nothing the matter with that.
Okay, I said last one, but I'll do the last one in a moment.
Yes, no problem.
Yeah, this could be a quick question. I think one of the main questions I have regarding the MOU is the long-term vision / do we kind of consider this as a precursor to maybe creating some sort of legally binding agreement with Dominion longer term, and as it relates to how they treat the WNOD?
I'll answer that in a couple ways. I think, first of all, for Dominion to be willing to enter into that would require Richmond to tell them to do so. I mean, that's just the reality. There's no reason that, and again, I'm not speaking for Dominion, but I've worked with them a long time, and there's no reason that they're going to limit their ability to manage their infrastructure, which, as was mentioned a couple minutes ago, they are held financially accountable by both their investors as well as regulators. There's no reason they're going to limit that ability without a legal obligation to do so. They're just not going to do it out of the kindness of their heart. And I think they have an easement that is a recorded easement that allows them to do pretty much whatever they need to on this trail to manage their infrastructure. And so that is something that is a value, that is a land interest of value, and they're not going to limit that without an obligation to do so. So I think, to answer your question, do we envision this as a future binding agreement? I think what we envision long-term is this is going to have to be a productive partnership. For us to manage what we need to manage, which is providing an incredible natural space that provides a really valuable recreation resource for the entire region, we need to be in a productive relationship with Dominion, because absent that, if Dominion and Nova Parks long-term are adversarial, then they're going to be able to limit our ability to do what we want to do on that trail, which is provide an incredible resource for everyone. And so I think long-term, we need to have a productive relationship, and that requires a balancing of interests. And I think that's what we work to try to negotiate here. Again, it's in some ways, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but in some ways, having a negotiated working arrangement is probably better than attempts at legislative fiat on this, because they're never going to be comprehensive enough to give us ultimately what we need to work together. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
15 seconds.
Okay, really, this is long.
No,
We're
please,
never
listen,
gonna-
this is what I do.
Realizing that you own the trail. and
Yeah.
Dominion has the easement and
Yeah.
Arlington doesn't.
Yes.
Maybe because of that saying, but I just feel better saying it. If you get wind of activities that are planned to
Yes.
take down trees along the Arlington portion, I'm assuming that you'll reach out to our urban forester and the county to clue them in.
Yeah,
So that we can be-
it's part of the MOU is that the local governments are also notified as part of this as well.
That's
Yeah, so it is not just us, it is the local governments involved as well. So that's all the cities and counties and the towns where they're.
Even a short summary version of this.
Yeah. No, that's
Carefully.
That is definitely
You
part
can
of
highlight
the process. And again, as I said earlier, we have a small number of staff, so we rely on the local staff as partners on this stuff. So I'm just happy you guys didn't ask me about snow plowing on the trail. That was what happened.
You'll have to come back. We still need to discuss that plus up and hill, Potomac Overlook.
Ah,
That was really helpful discussion. on the trail, but,
Happy to come back. Happy to
We
come
could
back.
cover next parts.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, now, if you could send the.
Yeah, I can. And
Because.
drop me an email, but just to give you, if you all want my email address, I can give it to you real quick. So I don't have enough business cards for it, but it's J Wilson, JWILSON at nvrpa.org, Northern Virginia Regional Park Authority.org.
And we have on as well.
Yeah, and An's on here as well.
Yeah.
Oh, she was very helpful too.
Yeah, she is very.
Yep, great.
Anyway, thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great meeting.
Right, so that was a good tie-in with David's presentation. So we did want to go through the biophilic website really quickly.
Okay.
Has that been updated?
Do that. Second.
Very interested to
So-
see about the zones.
I always like to do this where I tell people how to get there.
Yeah, no, I appreciate
From the
it.
county website, this giant search box,
You don't use Google?
you could Google it, but you might get to the wrong place or like an archived page or something. like that.
It's just check.
If you type in biophilic, it's the first result. Our outreach team keeps telling us to do that, to like send people to the main page and
And then go from
then
there.
find the thing, because you may find old pages if you use Google or something else that
Oh,
may
that's
not be
Did
relevant.
you discuss the idea from last time? You make it like a banner or the very front page?
I think I made a note of that once, but what did you want to see?
Just that, so one of the things after we joined the biophilic, after Arlington joined the Biophilic Cities Network, we had kind of a placeholder, a webpage, a landing page up there. And so we had requested that staff kind of populate it a little bit, which they did. So I just wanted to make sure that you all were aware of this. And, initially when we would talk about biophilia here, one of the county board members would laugh every time we said the word. So we're past that, people get it. And it's become a much more, not just in Arlington, but, worldwide, really, it's become much more of an understood and accepted concept. And, just by the number of cities that are involved in it too, much more directed effort towards that. So anyway, I just wanted.
If you could just click on each one to show what's like the first page behind it. So
So biophilia in
We'll make
Arlington,
it,
yeah, speaks,
We're not gonna-
actually has the initiatives in here and the indicators for success.
so if you're in an SPRC or if you're in another planning meeting, something like that, one of the objectives here is to get this into our policy and plan. So you can go back to this page and say, hey, guess what? We have this resolution and this is what we're supposed to have in these documents.
It's also in the Forestry Natural Resources Plan, right?
Yes.
So in terms of meta document, it's kind of.
It's in.
It's in everything.
Well, it's kind of like, we can point to FNR, we can
it's
explain
been-
that.
it's in everything.
The
that's been
website, we want to
passed
point to the.
It's been adopted since then.
So that,
And some of this is also maybe not duplicative, but you could also find a lot of this stuff on the actual just biophilic cities page.
Yeah.
We did copy some of these things and that's also.
Natural Resource Plan.
but there's some cool examples and there are some cool examples in Arlington that, in addition to the ones that David has already shown. So if you're in meetings and they say, oh, it's too hard, we can't do this, it's like, yes, we can, yes, we have, and here they are.
Biophilic, we're already biophilic,
This is,
We're working on it.
this is for individuals that want to learn, what can I do?
right? So you can click on the accordion pictures. Visit our farmers markets, et cetera.
And if you have other ideas, if you do get a chance to look at this and you have other ideas that aren't in there, let us know and we can certainly work with staff to see if we can get some of them.
If you click on the bottom middle one, that actually takes you to the biophilic cities page.
It's also
Project
great.
examples, here are some more pictures. Reuse of urban waste wood, bioretention, bunch of other planting areas. I don't know if trees in here. But
It's nice to see the pollinators overrepresented for a change.
It's okay. It's okay.
trees provide habitat
All right,
for
all right,
pollinators as well.
yeah.
Go to the examples and resources again, just because people have asked me about this,
This one.
That's, yeah.
that one. Yeah, and if you go down to the bottom, if there you need to send somebody something to read,
Oh,
those papers is
they're all by David Howell.
with the county.
Shameless.
How did Elizabeth?
Funny how that
Yeah, Elizabeth.
I hope you don't get any royalties.
They still-
Conflict of interest here.
It helps to have PhDs around so that they can help, write those papers. and stuff.
Where's the person who takes longer real?
Yeah, that's right. Every click he gets a quarter. So anyway, I just want to make sure that everyone here is conversant in that so that, so we're going through our very processes that can point to some of this. So thank you, David, for doing that.
And if you do have mind waves about how to improve this, you can send them to me. I can send them to staff. There's an interest. That doesn't mean we will do it, but we will take it into consideration.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Yes.
It will be a wet blanket. This is awesome and important. And it's great that now it's part of the infrastructure, it's part of the nervous system. But in my travels around the site plan review meetings and whatnot, or in legislative stuff that I'm doing, I'm judicious in how I use the word biophilic. It depends on the audience because you're preaching to the choir here. We all get it and are with you and understand all the nuance that you went through for us. But when I'm talking to a legislator, I kind of have to dumb it down a little bit, just talk about trees or talk about stuff in their own language, unless it becomes clear that they get it. So it's still a term that's not totally ingrained in society, and we're working toward that. A danger, I don't know if it's the right word, is danger, is that I perceive sometimes that developers throw the word biophilic around all the time and say, well, we're planting a couple street trees here, so we're being biophilic. We're checking that box.
The one that said we have windows, and so that's biophilic.
Exactly. They have an art installation,
Yes.
but no natural stuff. So I think we have to be vigilant when we're doing our work here because for Arlington, a lot of your pictures are Arlington County owned stuff where great things have been done. But since 70% of the tree canopy is on private land, we're not there yet when it comes to understanding and doing biophilic stuff. So I'm very much going to use the themes here as I fight for stuff, site plan review and other settings. But I think we have to be wary that the word biophilic can't be used as an excuse to say, well, I've checked that box and therefore I don't have to kind of push the envelope in terms of putting in real green spaces. They've got to do it for real. And I think developers aren't there yet.
I think that's right.
So just
Yeah.
sorry to be a wet blanket after all the positivity, but I
That's
think
definitely true. It's like saying, regular administration would say, ketchup is a vegetable. A potted plant cannot be,
It's a fruit.
And you do need to mention that.
all that you need. It's not all that you
I think that's a really good point. You know your audience and know what, the other one is Nearby Nature. That used to be the Northern Virginia Conservation Trust moniker, but it's a great one too. And it works for a
That's a
lot
little
of
more
them.
plain language.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't use the word biophilia a lot even. Speak about nature, but it is more inclusive. And to a very educated audience, it's very useful. What I sometimes get irked by when I'm reviewing site plans myself is like, oh yeah, we put a screen that shows nature pictures, which is biophilic. Or like we piped in some sounds or something like that, which could be biophilic. There's actually a really great example of this in Baltimore, where they have a tiny forest in the harbor that has like bird sounds. It even distracted an ecologist that will try and look for a bar down. But so like I sometimes get kind of it's like, oh, really? That's your biophilic design on this? And I can't really argue with them because it is biophilic.
yeah.
That doesn't
I
get
think
us trees.
I think you're, just to, so we all understand that. That's a thing.
It's not everything.
Right. Okay, next, Waverly Ridge site plan letter, bill drafted, sent around. Any comments on that? Again, not meeting the targets, but,
I was really disillusioned with the whole process because I felt like I got in there so late that the design was so far down the road. There was no way to say what needed to be said. They weren't following, they are abiding by the original plan for our artists from before it predates the LB Langston Boulevard plan, predates the Forest and Natural Resources Plan. And they're saying we're doing the best we can. It's the only way we can make money, which I don't believe. But that's me being a cynic. And here we are. They're putting up a lot of townhouses to make some money. And there's not much open space for trees.
Well, I think it is important to weigh in on it, even if we're probably not gonna make a change.
I don't feel like I have an impact here. I've attended all the meetings. I've said what I wanted to say in the meetings. That's appropriate. And I'm gonna say, shame on you, and they're still gonna build it.
I have one question about the canopy targets.
Sure.
The letter mentioned 35% canopy targets, but these are below 7 stories.
Correct.
Yeah,
So
what,
that's-
that should be, but in the Langston plan calls for 20% for the below 7 stories. If I'm not. The whole Langston area, I mean, that is
So
not.
this is section 3. I don't know if area 3.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that makes a difference.
Yeah, I want to make sure that
It
you're.
was a little confusing for me.
Representing the plan there.
I don't want to be misrepresenting the plan either.
Yeah, so for sites where the maximum height is up to 6 stories, the recommended tree canopy cover should be at least 20%, at least half of which should contain an understory of non-tree vegetation or understory.
So that would supersede then the area plan of 35%.
But the area plan achieve at least 35% tree canopy across the core area. That's a broad target. Then there are specific targets under SR3 of the Langston plan. That doesn't make me happy, Bill.
No, I understand. I don't want to misrepresent it
Right.
either.
I would say that they probably do meet their 20% on the site. I would be surprised.
I think they're saying they have 26%.
That they probably do.
But
Wait,
go ahead.
so I still think your number one here is perfectly a valid statement. Falls well short of the Langston Boulevard area plan,
Okay.
35%.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
That's what's important.
That's
This is a modern, fancy, very expensive little slum they're building because it's going to be 48 townhomes crammed into a site about the size of this room.
This is the.
I think it's disgraceful that they don't have more open space. And we haven't, this is going to be a trendsetter because they're going to be doing a heck of a lot. So I think it's important to push back.
I just want to make sure we distinguish between that. Obviously, it's totally fine to point out this 35% tree canopy.
Is this a core area or is it a core area?
This
It's
actually-
20% for 6 stories.
It's area 3.
The core area is the whole Langston.
Right.
So I think what we've said is okay, but I think technically you're right that they are probably meeting their 20%.
Yeah,
I think it's okay to
I
say.
don't know if you need to thread the needle on this per se.
I don't think I'm capable. So
Seven stories.
the other,
No, these are townhouses, so. they're-
so,
So they're not, oh, got it.
but that's where I think we missed the boat. They decided to do townhouses that are 4 stories high.
Yeah,
This is how they can make money. This is how they may or may not be able to meet the target. But the area is zoned for 7-story buildings.
right.
So they
Yeah.
could have built something else.
But the neighbors like the fact that it's lower.
Maybe. The neighborhood representative there was very thrilled with this project.
Yeah. And they said,
Walgreens project
So it
is meeting 35%
It's much taller, I think.
and much taller.
Apparently,
Steve,
maybe.
this is-
It's just my own.
So I think technically we're okay. I mean,
It is
Probably, yeah.
20% though.
yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
that is-
for
that
the
was the-
site, but if you want to speak to the whole plan, the plan's target is 35%, so.
Well, we had concerns about the Lucky Gardens one. Is that what meeting it's?
Let's focus on that.
Well, no, but it's more, it's large at this point of these are the initial projects under this
Yeah,
new
and that's-
construct.
yeah.
We're not seeing the best foot forward here. And so if it's gonna be, how do you think of it, salami sliced, each one's gonna be made a little bit exception, not really contributing to the 35% goal. We're never gonna get a 35% goal, let alone 40% goal.
Right, if
So
you
it's,
don't,
it's like better to
So we
flag
can
in
rephrase
combination
that to say-
with the other one,
Yeah.
that we don't see a good trend developing here. Somebody needs to do something about it.
Yeah, so we can rephrase that a little bit to,
Carolyn, somebody's got a comment behind you.
I know with projects that vastly exceed like the Florida area ratio standards in the county, like we have a mechanism in the PSMP that says they need to provide some sort of compensation either to like public amenities. Do we have the inverse of that where they're like vastly
I'm sorry, I only heard part of what you said. You're talking about beyond the project site to build things?
So just broadly development in Arlington County, like any development project that exceeds, I think it's like a certain Florida area ratio, which most of the buildings in this corridor adhere to, they need to provide some sort of amenity to.
There was a lot of talk about amenities that I didn't fully understand.
Well, it's like everything in conspiracies up.
And-
Once you go above by right, I mean, Steve is our.
Let me finish. What they're saying they're gonna do, there are amenities that they're providing. They're building extra parking spaces off their site. They're building better bike lanes. That's not really their responsibility.
That's what they're claiming, or.
They are claiming that, and I have no way to verify it.
I would still suggest that it's legitimate for this commission to suggest that they exceed the 20% by more than the 26 they've got. In keeping with the spirit of Plan Langston Boulevard and the idea that we're well below our county tree canopy target. So I think as a commission, I think it's legitimate for us to suggest that they need to go above and beyond here. We want them to. They should, as good business people in this county, be willing to do that.
30 projects is 5% or 10% below whatever our objective goal is. Well, obviously.
That's
goal.
I think it's a fair point that, since this is one of the initial projects, that we say this should meet the area-wide plan.
That's totally legitimate. I just want to make sure that.
Yeah,
That's,
we
that's a
understand.
distinction.
Yeah.
Wasn't being-
Yeah, I know, it's a fair.
Okay.
There was also the public space which is being provided by this project that is seen as an amenity.
But it's less than the Langston Boulevard called for.
Yep, but it's still a public space. I'm not defending the
No, I understand.
applicant here, a public space that they are installing and maintaining.
We discussed last time, it was a rather small public space.
Sure is.
Okay, but it's
It's more than what would be there if it was a by right project. They
It's-
put more townhouses up.
And it's more than the artist development had, but about half, or maybe 60% of what the Langston Boulevard plan calls for.
Also speak to that. That's space for trees.
There's always the fallback. Yeah, if it was by right, it would really stink.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of getting tired of that argument because that's a given. But I think the whole reason we're doing site plan review is to get people to go above and beyond. We just had talked for an hour and a half about the vital importance of biophilia. This is where the rubber meets the road. We're talking about how do you do that?
And to certain degrees, besides the point, it's not my right. Thank you very much. It just is not my right. So
Right.
thank you for raising that in hearing. It's not my right.
So
Let's do the review and do it well.
I'm actually, given this discussion, I'm fine with where it is right now. But if somebody has specific language change, because basically we're saying it's one of our first projects, it goes below the.
Do we want to recognize that it does meet the 20%, but we want to recommend the 35%?
Staff pretty actively requires that on these projects, like. The only one I'll talk to about in a little bit at Mikey Gardens where there's some question about whether they're meeting. Or actively meeting that bottom. target.
So there,
Right, but this is just saying that if I'm reading this right, it's saying it's falling short of the 35%, but my understanding from what you've said is that that's actually not the marker for this project. It's actually
Right.
20%. So I think do we want to acknowledge that they have hit that, but we want them to do that? Because otherwise I think they might read this and say they have no idea what they're talking about.
Technically, they're meeting the narrow
Yeah,
criteria.
They are.
But
Okay.
I agree, but I'm just worried they're gonna think we don't know what we're talking about if we hit the
No, I think
35
that's-
without recognizing that they hit the 20, but we.
For what it's worth, I'm not comfortable with that. We're under no obligation to say, list all the things they did right. That's kind of a given. We're making points about where we think that they could do better.
Like, I think to the extent that we say they're meeting the minimal. That's.
Maybe if we had to
Yeah.
bare minimum.
Right.
I think minimal is okay. I think you can't not say it though, because the credibility of our own work comes into question.
Well, it's hypothetical.
Right, that's right.
It doesn't meet 30% parentheses, though it meets the criteria.
if present trends continue, we're never gonna do 35%.
Right, you want more sites to exceed 35%. Yeah.
Okay, with that change, then do I have a motion on this?
Well, are we gonna include the concept of like we just looked at, like, gardens that also is not doing what it could be doing, and so this is.
We're just voting on this one right now.
No, we are just voting on this one. Point is to make it a more powerful argument to say we now have looked at two of these projects, neither one of which is really going to materially contribute to the 35%, or come up short of 35%. So it's like saying, for the county, you got something developing here overall that you pay close attention to.
It's not as easy to say that.
Okay, no, I'm just
Not
saying.
unless you want the article, not unless you want the letter to just be about a troubling new trend.
Well, I guess maybe that's what I'm.
All the, all the new projects are failing to do that.
Separate plan.
It is.
Okay.
And it lumps them all together and hurts the county board.
That's a good idea.
I agree.
That's good.
All right, no, thank you for that. I just want to.
Yeah, I guess, are we going to make a recommendation for a specific percentage canopy coverage, or we're just going to acknowledge that it falls short?
My sense of given where this is right now and that it's headed to planning commission and boards, I think to acknowledge the false short. That would be my,
I like the idea of John's letter for a troubling trend we're in.
For this one or?
For the combined.
A separate letter.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
All these.
Yeah, okay, okay.
okay, that's good.
You know-
Okay, so on this letter?
Yeah.
We're okay with that?
So,
Move to approve.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, any other discussion?
You have to make sure the numbers are right to keep.
I will
Jason
make the
happy.
numbers right.
You don't have to make me happy at all. You can write anything you want in your letter.
No, I want you happy.
It's a good flag.
Oh, yeah, you guys need to turn your cameras on to vote. Who do we have voting? I guess.
Thank
that's
you.
just Phil. Okay, thank you, Phil. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
And I see Phil's and now I'm just, no, okay, and I think that's unanimous. Okay, great. Thank you all very much. And thanks. I really appreciate the energy and enthusiasm of supporting this process, because it is important for us to be showing up and to speaking up. And even if we don't get everything we want, it's really important to be there. So, and to be vocal about it. Speaking of being vocal about it, the next item on the agenda is, we've had several people suggest that the current stormwater credit for trees is kind of lame in that, number one, you don't get very much credit for it, but it also is only good for that first year of planting. And I just sort of want to throw out the concept of do we want to maybe write a letter to the county board to say, we really ought to be looking at longer term sustainability of those trees, because somebody could plant a tree, take the tree out, and then plant it again the next year. I mean, it makes no sense.
Yeah.
And I know it's a fee-based program, so what we keep hearing from DES is if you are giving away any additional credit, then we got to make that up somewhere else. So it's not a huge amount of money, but I think there ought to be some kind of incentive there. So I just wanted to raise the topic.
So were you being clairvoyant and reading my mind or did somebody else bring this up?
It's been brought up a bunch of times.
Because over the past month, I've engaged in an extensive email dialogue with the staff about that very issue about my own property. And in asking the broader question, why can't I get credit? We have a whole rain garden in the backyard. The whole yard is basically a rain garden. Why don't we get credit for that? Because every year we're soaking up stormwater. And I kind of got the process response and eventually I gave up. But one interesting thing that the staff person said was essentially they implied that they don't have enough money in their budget to be able to have it be broader and have it be done year after year. You're going to get a credit, Benson, for what you've done because you're keeping stormwater off the street with what you've done in your yard. So they rely on technicalities, like the rain garden was not quite under the definition of rain garden and stuff like that. So, gosh, if we're going to have some kind of resolution here, I'm all for it because I feel like, we invested a lot of money and time and effort to create to soak up stormwater. And if you don't meet the letter of the law, then you get nothing. So what's the incentive for others to do?
I mean, I would be all for us writing a letter about the stormwater credit because in my experience, in my arm in life, is the private properties where I'm working, people aren't interested in even volunteering, even showing up to hold a sign to gain credit.
So meaning what?
Meaning they have to have more money at stake.
Oh, yeah.
My recollection from the presentation was they only put it in because it was a state requirement or requirement.
And
Having that.
citizens push specifically for that too. We
Yeah, the state
And
requires
they-
some kind of discount program.
Yeah.
Right,
It's not an
and
incentive.
they purposely made it so tiny that it's not even worth it.
Well, that's my experience.
So, I mean, clearly their attitude was, we only doing this as we have to. And we're planning, we're implementing in such a way that no one is gonna do. I mean, that
It is
was-
being, it is being used, and one thing that I found interesting was how much credit multifamily buildings get for it, actually. They tend to get quite a bit of credit for it because it's per household.
Okay,
So they end up getting a lot of credit for planting one tree, which is kind of good because those places probably need it. So it is being used quite a bit, and it is creating discounts for people.
how long has it been?
Use this presentation.
For me or Bob, I have 9 trees on my property. There's no way that,
I'm looking at
even if we went through the process of getting it, we get like $5. So.
The principle of the thing.
So I would recommend that before we think about what to write about, we should get another presentation. Now that this has had a couple of years of implementation with a lot of feedback, and so we can ask questions for clarification, so we can hit the nail on the head.
It was
Whatever we do.
last July.
Last July,
Yeah.
okay.
Stormwater utility fund presentation.
Because they made some changes in what you get credit for. I don't know about the amounts. But it's a complicated, I mean, to be balanced, I think. We switched, like Alexandria had done before us. We switched away from a tax-based funding of stormwater infrastructure to switch to something that spreads the burden according to individual property size. That's already an achievement. That's already an achievement, right? The amount of the proportions of that. The best way to reduce your amount is to reduce your impervious surface, not to plant a tree. Even trees are good, but that's the best way, because that puts you it can put you in a different category.
Except the categories are so
So big,
broad.
yeah.
Well, that
I pay the same amount as someone who has twice as much.
Yeah,
impervious
and
surface,
yeah.
Because there's only 3 categories.
And that was recognized before they created the program.
And
Because I
when
put
they're
that
here,
in
I
paper.
mentioned this lot that got paved over on the edge of Arlington. Gonna go dig those people because they're not being incentivized enough to rather than take care of the lot, they just paved it over. And meanwhile, we're not giving credit to all the hard work we've been doing over the years. This person's getting very little. It's like those.
So
There's another unfairness working its way into this.
I'm also, it's sort of the concern of wanting to make sure, especially when it's a tree, that the tree is maintained and watered and, all of those kind of things, so that it's actually contributing to something too. So even if our message is very simple and it's just trees, that might be something that we could consider. Give it a 5-year credit. Okay, it's only $5. That's okay. Give it 5 years to give people at least some kind of simple incentive to maintain that tree.
If you made different comparative, you're still getting the revenue because people that are overly excessive get dinged for it, and those that are doing the best to conserve, that's where we're saving their money. They don't have to deal with my runoff.
I'm if you all are interested in this, I'm happy to look into it a little bit more to see if there's something that might make sense, without, getting too much pushback from staff that it's too hard to implement. There's no one who can do it.
Well, I mean, we discussed that last time, since we are in a couple of years where we made the point they're already making use of the satellite imagery to do the assessment, right? And our contention was, you're already gathering all that data, you have it at hand, why can't you slice up packages or just?
We may get with AI now. I mean, it may be the next level that we can.
We suggested not to use treatment.
Yeah.
They dismissed it out of hand during the
Right.
So it's a hard sell.
But it's, sometimes not a bad idea sort of to drop the concept
Yeah,
in
yeah.
discussion again and just express.
Because they've got the summer imagery for the tree canopy with the winter imagery on the surface.
Right, yeah, they can't be taken at the same time, but one
Yeah, right, thank you
concern,
for reminding me, yeah.
there was one concern with prioritizing or incentivizing people with high tree canopy that it tends to then put more high value. It has an equity issue.
So people have bigger lots and can have.
People have bigger lots and more trees, they're more likely to get the incentive. It was the same problem that the stormwater waste program ran into. So that was some of the argument there. conversation.
We're advertising for the tree planting program.
Yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
telling you what they said.
Yeah, okay.
You wonder though, from conversations I've had with stormwater folks, stormwater staff folks, that I think you're right. It's like, there's not a lot of incentive. You don't get much if you have a lot of trees and everything. I think maybe I perceive an underlying issue that they value hard infrastructure for capturing stormwater over trees and natural green infrastructure.
It's probably easier for them to measure.
But
no,
here's another thing, there's another thing too, though, that's important, is that the stormwater people that we typically talk to, the ones who maybe interpret what the data is about square footage and mitigation projects, are not the ones making the financial policy. This is a state authorized fee. All the people who put together this program, as far as the structure of how it works, are basically financial people. They're not the stormwater staff that
They didn't do it with making a lot of money in mind.
and the whole point of it is to pay for the hard infrastructure. So, on the one hand, you want to try to emphasize and incentivize reducing the amount of stormwater that actually has to go into the system, because eventually that can help reduce the requirements. As we get more and more impervious, those requirements could go up. If it stays even, it shows certain amount of success, but you're not going to have anyone agreeing to a situation where we pay so much out that it undermines the municipal funding aspects of this, because that's at the heart of it. And one of the strategies that's actually helped other things that we're doing, for example, in this year's budget, the tree canopy program funding that didn't come from developers because there wasn't enough money from that source came out of the stormwater fund.
Well, we don't necessarily need to decide this tonight, but I just wanted to raise it so you all can be thinking about it and think about the different implications of it and maybe different approaches that we might take, but just, anyway, it's just one of my little bugaboos, so I wanted to at least. John, did you have something else you were gonna say? I mean, about it.
Well, it's sort of a separate topic, but it was raised on hard infrastructure versus trees. We've been fighting this battle for years and trying to get formal stormwater credit for new development for trees, in addition to the measurable rain gardens, art spaces. And my recollection was it passed the legislature to require a study which would look into that. I haven't followed up enough to know whether or not there was anything, but they raise all these problems. You don't know if the tree's going to stay forever. How do you measure that? All that kind of stuff. So it's been a challenge to get under the Chesapeake Bay ordinance, to get formal stormwater credit for a mature tree in redevelopment.
In our permitting process, there is, I think, a 5 to 10% credit for planting or conserving existing trees.
So that was new from.
Yeah, that's only been in place for about a year and a half, so that's not really that.
Okay, well, thank you all. I appreciate that. So let's go ahead and do January minutes.
Yeah,
Stuff.
I do want to give Noreen a brief moment. She had mentioned an error in her report, her tree stewards report.
Yeah.
Uh,
I just wanted to amend my tree stewards report for anybody that read it, probably weren't even paying attention to this. But anyway, I said something about 11 tree stewards made home visits, and it was that they made 11. I actually don't know. I think it was 3, 4, 5 tree stewards, but I'm not sure
Made 11.
exactly how many, but they made 11 visits. So anyway, I wanted to
Dock your
amend that.
pay.
Yeah.
Thank you. That clarification.
I would like to amend that statement so that Vince can put it out the correct way.
Okay, thank you.
And can I just on that real quick, I noticed there's still a item in the list for a tree canopy report. So I didn't file a separate one with that, but I think the tree steward report that I did submit can be cut in two. because my first paragraph dealt with the tree
I
canopy.
want to get credit for reporting.
So I don't know if you can, when you put it out in the minutes, if you
That's a technical edit. I can do that.
can, okay.
We still have several issues to. So keep cutting.
Well, just that
Zero.
planted as well. I think
Zero divided by 2.
And double.
It was not to just.
And then
feature
double by
tree planting program on the county website, but suggests that the county should have a rotating banner of things it wants to feature, capture people's attention that much, of which tree planting can be one or anything. But it's just kind of to get some of these, for lack of a better term, less well-known programs a little more prominence. So you have, so I didn't want to hog the county's website. I wanted to share it with a number of other programs to draw people's attention to it. Does that make sense?
Yes, is that something for an edit for the January meeting?
For the minutes you sent around.
Okay. I'm not sure where that is.
It's, you have, oops, my name, because you have me kind of putting, it's a tree canopy fund, we're talking about the tree planting. It was the notable tree program.
It's not under your name. But it's-
Any other changes? Because we're going to keep moving. We've got a couple more things we still need to do.
Not critical, but just the key one,
Adding the notable tree program to the county front page.
along with other kind of featured programs, that kind of rotating banners.
That feature.
Okay, with those,
Thank you very much. That,
any other changes? If not, all those in favor of adopting the minutes? Okay, Phil, are you a yes on the minutes? Yes, okay, thank you. Okay, did you have some things you want to talk about in staff reports?
Yeah, briefly on Lucky Gardens, since that was, oh, sorry. Give me a second. Oh, that's John.
Right here.
Okay. Please mute yourself if you can. Mute you. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen with you briefly. For those not familiar with this site plan, this is a affordable housing site plan that we had 2 county board meetings on, and the critical part on the site plan is this tree 13. Why did I just get kicked off? Oh, yes, a certain Mr. Carey kicked me off.
Well, never mind. This is too complicated.
Yeah, only one person can be presenting at the same time, I'm sorry. So this is tree 13 on Lakewood Gardens, and this project is has a target of 35% tree canopy. And during review, ever since August, when we started reviewing this, staff had been noting to the applicant that they need to move their building, otherwise this tree cannot be conserved. And they did not move the building. During the county board meeting on Saturday, the county board asked us to try to find any kind of way. So the conditions we wrote into the site plan conditions for this site is that they have to air excavate or use ground penetrating radar to find the roots along this edge along the future building. If for some very unlikely reason there are no roots there, maybe there's very compacted soil or something like that, they can continue to conserve this tree and count it for canopy. I find this very unlikely, and I've expressed this to the applicant. If that doesn't happen, then they will, or if there are significant roots there, they will be asked to remove and replace the tree at a higher rate than the typical tree canopy fund contribution of $6,000 per tree replacement, as opposed to $4,000 per tree replacement. And prioritize planting on site first before replacing trees. So if the tree doesn't get counted, then we do not have 35% on this site. If the tree does get counted, then they do have 35% on the site. So that's why I said it was complicated.
And you all will recall that the letter that Bob drafted, that we included that in there, that they should not be counting this because we didn't think it was sufficient. So, and Bob showed up and made the claim, and apparently got some traction.
So through 2 site plan review committee meetings, a planning commission meeting, and county board testimony, our comments have pretty much stayed the same because the developer didn't do anything to address them. the entire way through. So yes, we're not going to meet the 35% canopy goal, even with replacement trees. It'll end up being in the neighborhood of 29% if they have the 5 replacements. I guess they boosted the cost a little bit because I was talking with Susan Cunningham about the value of the tree, kind of looking up what's the economic value of a tree that's that big and that wide and that significant. But basically the community, which is going to be totally low to middle income, totally affordable housing, will lose the benefit of a giant shade tree when the whole point was to save a greenway with mature trees for the benefit of the lower income people that would be living there.
Well, it's worse than that in fashion, just the general overview. We've had many discussions over the years of the under certain parts of the county that don't have enough trees in it, which somewhat can overlap with lower economics areas. We're now producing, putting affordable housing in this area. And we're like replicating the problem we're complaining about in South Arlington and other areas in Arlington. And it's just kind of despicable in fashion.
That is right. That is right. In addition to that comment about that tree, we had, as a commission, we had a comment about undergrounding wires along the north border. Wires they're slightly over the line on the property, belong to the Lee Heights Shopping Center. There are ongoing negotiations which have been going on for like months or a year. And Lee Heights is not really moving. Our recommendation was the county staff, planning staff should get involved and broker a deal. And they have chosen not to do that. So odds are those wires will not be buried, although there's still, I guess, some chance that a deal could be struck before backhoes show up to start digging a hole. We also argued for bird-friendly glass. They had the 17 reasons why they don't want to do that, and they want to do that. We argued for LEED gold, not LEED silver. They came up with a different plan. It's Earthcraft, which I looked up. It's not bad, but many people still think they should have gone for LEED gold in this day and age. There are other issues that aren't really in our bailiwick as a commission about the number of spaces for recharging cars and things like that. We also argued for wider tree planting strips for the street trees that they're going to be planting. And apparently they didn't do that. So we did our level best to get these comments on the table. But I think where I'm coming from with the whole biophilic comment I made earlier is that even though I've only been doing site plan review for a little while, I'm getting jaded here. Because every single daggone project, yeah, even me, hard to believe that.
Wow.
It's because there's all this angst expressed during meetings about, gosh, we really need to support biophilia. We really need to have a good environment for these affordable housing families that are going to live there, et cetera. This is the model for the rest of Langston Boulevard for developments. And then at the end of the day, they all vote for it. Only 2 planning commission members who agreed with the issues that we've raised voted no. The rest expressed a lot of angst and then voted yes. So I realize that you're up against it when the entire building is going to be affordable housing. It's hard to argue against that. But I really think the developer didn't operate totally in good faith in terms of trying to come up with creative solutions to address issues that many, not just me, not just this commission, but the local civic associations, C2E2, many supported. And it's disappointing. So there will be street trees, that there will be replacement trees. They'll have to pay a little bit more. They're making millions of dollars, but they'll have to pay $2 grand more a tree. Woo. But I think there's an underlying issue here that we need to crack the nut about. How do we get site plan review to really have impact?
Weigh in on this too, but I think showing up, speaking, knowing that they're gonna have to have that battle, and the kind of work we tried to do ahead of time, at least it makes it a little more painful for them. It may still not we're never always gonna get our way, but I think we've made progress. It's better than it used to be.
If you can believe that.
If you can believe that, it's actually a lot better than it used to be, sadly, but.
Understood, but I would have felt better if there had been just one concession, just
Yeah.
one minor thing.
It's
So I guess there is a concession. They're going to do the underground radar for the tree roots and pay $2 grand more for the 5 extra trees. That's a 10 grand.
But the fact that the trees, that came up as an issue was, to your credit for keeping on it and staying with it, so.
But again, it's this mismatch between one form, the same set of people are like, the folks don't have access the environment, they don't have trees, so on and so forth, something about it, programs put in place. Yet then when the opportunity comes to build affordable housing, it's kind of, oh, they don't need that.
Another unit, so I get it.
And this is also like a do-gooder nonprofit that's doing this, right? And so I think there's something there to explore in terms of, I mean, you did a great job. Don't get me wrong, it's not criticism. I'm just doing to get down the
Of
future.
course, of course. But the community was, you know, they talked a lot with the community, but they didn't really give a lot to the community. So yeah, they're a nonprofit and they're doing great work to try to get more affordable housing units, including multi-bedroom units, which are kind of a rarity. I can't fault that, but I really think that they could have done more to make it a better environment for these people. And it's not just affordable housing, because next up on my plate is Walgreens. I'd like to be on the March agenda because they're going to be talking about that at the county board in April. So that's a good sequence for us. I'll have a letter for you next time for the next meeting. But that is for profit. And it's the same thing that's happening. A lot of like figurative patting on the head. Oh, little tree guy. Good points. Good points. Yeah, we believe in biophilia too. But we're going to do exactly what we set out to do in the first place.
Yeah, it is frustrating.
So sorry to vent, but I think Lucky Gardens could have been so much better.
Well, I mean, I hate to say it, but it's like that all over the world. Everybody claims to be concerned about nature and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, that shopping center and that highway and that data center still is gonna go ahead.
If this was a nonprofit, that were partially, I guess, allowing this or that, and one, number two, the housing commission want to go people that do the affordable housing, say we are well on the way to achieving our 17.7% rental unit goal by 2040. Of course, this will help us further to that goal, but it strikes me as they could have lost 5 units out of this, so to speak, if they more green space for the populations we serve by, because isn't like we're failing necessarily on affordable housing goal.
249 units. If they had made, I realized it was an uphill battle, but if they had put a little notch in the building, and this building has a lot of notches. It's actually it's not just a big rectangle. They would have lost 4 units. So 245 affordable housing units. I think that's still well within the goals of what we're trying to achieve in Langston Boulevard corridor for affordable housing. And the argument that I keep making in the site plan review meetings and when I was down in Richmond lobbying is affordable housing and tree canopy are not mutually exclusive. In fact, they're complementary because you want the people who buy the affordable housing to be able to live in a great green environment like us rich folks live in North Arlington. And so I think the developer did their new tenants a disservice.
Well,
I could say the same.
fighting the battle. Appreciate it. I do want, we've got a bunch of other things we still, Lisa, do you want to talk about the C2E2 and the yard signs?
Yeah, super quickly, because I know we're already past time. The zoning commission approached C2E2 and asked for their support in a ban of signage on medians around Arlington. And so C2E2 had a few thoughts on it, but since it had to do with more of like the pollution and beautification side of Arlington, they really wanted FNRC's thoughts before we made a decision either way. We had a few questions about enforcement, what the current policy is, and requested more data around kind of the push behind this full-on ban. We see the value of signs in terms of it's an accessible and affordable way to advertise, you know, school plays and upcoming elections and things like that. But also understanding it's a huge eyesore and not every group does take their signs down. And so we also asked about the materials the signs are made out of, but just wanted to see if the group here had any thoughts one way or another on a ban, but a total ban of the median signs.
So did it cause traffic accidents?
It would.
Candidate signs, because that's pretty much where they all are all the time.
Yeah.
I think
Which is-
distraction. Bill asked.
We did ask for that data as well. We said, do we have any data that said it caused traffic accidents? Got distracted.
It's supposed to distract the ancillary down. So
It's probably a distraction and a traffic calming measure at the same time.
Yeah.
What might cause an accident or a problem is the people that have to run out there and stick them in the ground. Yeah,
You see
I've seen
the
that,
realtor-
I've seen that happen
with them.
with the realtors, yeah.
And they're not wearing PPE.
Yeah.
I've seen
Well,
that fine.
I mean, they do blow around in storms and stuff. And
Yeah.
street,
Yeah,
and
we
there's
cleaned them up from our.
plastic and then the wire
Is that right?
sticks
Yeah.
stuck in the ground.
They do that, that they put them out of parks all up quite.
They're always in 4 Mile Run, we're always thinking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's already opposition for ban argument that it favors the establishment politicians as opposed to name recognition. And that's a terrible thing. So that's just to tell you what the opponents are arguing.
I mean, they have names on them. Can't we find the one that people's names?
Yeah, right.
Recyclable
Yeah,
paper.
so
I mean, if you're a candidate and you're getting people to put them out there, get people to pull them out.
I think I saw that, maybe read the same thing that you read. I think one thing that I saw in addition to that was the suggestion that instead of a total ban, if signs are, you're expected to take your signs down. If they remain, then your name's on them, so you get charged a certain amount for removal of your signs.
Seriously,
nice-
just said that.
Oh, you did? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Forgive me. I second what you, sorry.
They're all good, all good.
So perhaps not a total ban, but implementing, as an enforcement measure, fees if they're out past a certain date, if it's for an election or something, if it's not picked up within a week or something, then
Isn't that the current rule?
I think this might
Not
be.
enforced.
Not have. It's just not
Yeah.
enforced, yeah.
Well, I like Jen's comment about just send them a bill.
Well, can there be some limit on how many can be put up? Because sometimes, these elections, certain candidates will have, in one median strip, they'll have like 100 signs, they just really overdo it.
Would that force that though?
I'm overdue.
Well, yeah,
I guess general thoughts, I don't know, there's probably no like quantitative data on like what percentage of these signs actually are community-based signs versus political candidates. But I don't know if there's like an avenue for like a civic association to designate a single spot, like in each neighborhood where like community-based signs can be placed. And then a broad ban on anything else like that we don't really need, aka political candidates, they can get their message out. If you have other avenues, pretty okay with saying no to that.
So designated spots and.
Yeah, I think they don't need to be throwing it all along Washington Boulevard.
Let us know where you end up with that.
Yeah, well,
Yes.
too. Thank you everyone for your feedback.
Is there a reason to distinguish between political signs and every other?
You end up with both in the parks, I said.
Yeah, those are pollutions.
And a double and a triple fine if they end up in 4 Mile Run.
He refused to use them between their. It's probably not a big use.
Okay, thank you. Transportation plan?
Yeah, I don't know if you could call that thing or not, just to look at pictures.
Send a letter, John. You always have some spare time in your hand. Put together
These are the pictures I just wanted to show very, very briefly. We've been pushing since the beginning that the transportation plan should try to create more space for people, nature, and alternative transportation, less space for cars. At the last meeting, we got pushback against that, saying, oh, we can't possibly take space. That's a non-starter. So I wrote a rebuttal to that response, which goes on at great length. But crucially, I think the messaging that we should flip the message around and say the whole goal of the transportation plan would be to create alternatives so that people have other options, greater freedom to travel, which would in turn free up space for people in nature. So, and then I went through and found a number of cities and places that had done that. So if you could go back. Yeah, first of all, that's a great photo. Lancaster, California, which took their huge, horrible street, turned into this grassy medium, and it had this huge economic benefit to the whole community. Another surprising one, if you could, Vincent, go down to the next picture.
It
The
does.
next set of three. This is of all places, Indianapolis, Indiana, red state, where they took an entire lane of traffic in the downtown, And they made grass, bike lane, walk, pedestrian, and more grass, more green space. And that, again, stimulated something like $300 million in economic. So again, this is the kind of thing that Arlington should be thinking about. We're trying to promote. And ironically, if you go on to the next set of pictures, Arlington is already doing this sort of piecemeal way. One of the best examples farther down is Sycamore Street, which was a 4-lane street, very unsafe, lots of accidents. And through the neighborhood conservation plan, the community put a median in, put a bike lane, reduce it to 1 lane over considerable opposition. How dare you take away a traffic lane? Now it's much better. Everything is great. And then the next couple of pictures where you're taking space. This is Trinidad and Little Falls, a giant traffic circle, which has all sorts of beneficial effects, including green space, stormwater, and traffic calming. And then, of course, the ubiquitous stormwater retention, which is a curb bump out. And so basically, I'm arguing that Arlington is already doing this kind of thing. And then if you go to the next set of pictures, we see the Langston plan, which does precisely what Indianapolis has done. This kind of thing where you get the bike lane protected and separated, additional trees, additional green space, at the expense of taking away some travel lane, which you get because you've made alternative travel so attractive that many more people are out. And I go through some data to show if just 30 people would walk to a store or grocery store or restaurant, you can save a 1/4 acre of parking for those 30 people. So there's a tremendous gains to be made in repurposing the space. Anyway, so this we have, there are 23 priorities in the draft priorities in the transportation plan, and they asked for specific comments on each, which I provided. I'm not going to go through them, and they're due this weekend. And so that's what this report is that I have. That will go to the advisory committee, and then we'll talk about it at the next meeting.
Okay, you're gonna send it to somebody that.
It goes to the transportation staff.
Okay.
We will then theoretically read the comments and we will discuss them at the next advisory committee.
So the thought was at some point, we're gonna want to weigh in with the letter to the county board. Because I had drafted something saying basically, we're super frustrated.
Yeah.
Raising this and it keeps getting ignored.
And
So
And we're doing it anyway, so whether it's.
Right. Even though Arlington is already doing things like this, not under the transportation plan, but under these other, jurisdictions.
Like David said, voting nature is one of the goals.
Correct. Correct. So I think there's tremendous opportunities, and I'm personally pretty frustrated, which is why I put this together, which I may repurpose into a blog as well. But
I think we should take your paper, the argument that you wrote up as if it's an article. I think we should put the cover letter on, send it to the county board.
He can show you how to get the clip to get the 25 cents.
Because we, if I want to whine, but to get nature into the livable goals.
Yeah.
20 or 30 hours.
You fought that battle for a long time.
Just for that one thing.
So I guess the question is, do you want the letter now, or do you think we should wait until after the next meeting?
That's for you guys to decide. I didn't felt in a way that they would get pissed off if we went behind their above them.
Okay.
Above them, and here's the Forestry Commission telling us that we're doing our job without giving us a chance. But I don't know. I mean,
How about after we'll plan this and review it in March, after you have your next
the
meeting?
next meeting is second week.
Okay, so that we'll be, at least have some feedback, and then we can be ready to have a letter if we feel like you're not getting traction on it.
And I feel like the guy from the bicycle advisory committee is the one who also pushed back with me. And I feel like sharing it with him.
Oh,
beforehand.
absolutely.
Okay, sure.
Are there other commissions? I mean, do you have C2E2 on
Yeah,
this?
all the commissions are on.
So I would maybe reach out to whoever the C2E2 and the park, we can find the park and rec person who's on it. And I would say that's probably going to be one of our best bets, is to try to coordinate and the pedestrian thing, so that more people are saying it. I think that could be very helpful.
Yeah, it's Parks and Rec on it.
Yeah.
What about the neighborhood commission?
I think everyone's on it. Not everyone comes to
Because I
review.
mean, they point about neighborhood commission.
Yeah,
Is it?
yeah.
I think you should probably see extraction.
Well, that's why it's a paradox, because when you got a list of things going in Arlington, I'm going, yeah, all that has been great. I've noticed myself driving around or walking around, just riding around the Wilson Boulevard, diet was great. So I wonder if people think it's already happening as part of some master plan. And someone's surprised to find out it's not, and they're actually resisting it.
The plan should catch up with the operation.
Oh, thanks. Good. Good.
Okay, so we'll wait, but anyway, just wanted everybody to be on what's going on with that. Okay, now we're running late. Let's, did we have anything else that, Bob was gonna give us a legislative update. That, is that,
Super quick.
oh,
It's a real drama.
two staff?
One second, I did do staff reports, but Leslie's online. She couldn't speak last time. Leslie, did you have anything for VCE? I just want to make sure that she has the opportunity.
And same with
I'm
Steve.
good. Thanks, Vincent.
Okay, good.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
Sure. Glad to be here.
And Stephen, do you have anything you want to report?
No, not a whole lot. We've been busy with snow. The Monday snow, we lost some limbs up in the north of Taylor on evergreen trees, but in general, it hasn't been a busy time for trees just right yet.
Okay, thank you very much.
Surely.
Hey,
Um,
Carolyn, it's
yes.
Nia.
Oh, yeah,
Sorry,
absolutely.
I was trying to race to the button and couldn't hit it in time. I emailed you something a little earlier today, and I thought I would bring it up now. And although I'm not chairing this year, Peter was not available to attend. But when we have a project that comes up, and this has come up now a few times, where for whatever the reason, the applicant is not obligated to provide bird-friendly glass under the current plan that they're coming in through. Would it be possible to have a list of bird-friendly glass recommendations that are alternate to, frittering, that they would can consider? Because as a commissioner, you can push that, but I don't have a handy list, and it would be great to. And I know, David, I've actually from the decals, the appliques that you had sent me from my home in Michigan, I've told them about that, but it would be very helpful to have something on the record where I can hand, or some of my fellow commissioners can hand the applicant to say, here are some alternatives, not an alternative if they're required in the specific plan that they're using, that they're supposed to be up to, the 35 feet. But for the others, and we've seen a lot of those lately, so that would be kind of helpful to me. I don't know how you feel about that, Vincent. I don't know, where your thought is on that, but it would be kind of helpful as I'm standing there trying to draw the line, and I don't have the wherewithal or those resources at hand.
This is kind of a personal project for me. I did a lot of research when we first started getting into this. The American Bird Conservancy has a list of products and treatments. It's with different threat factors. I can send that to you, Nia, if you'd like.
Thank you.
Or I can send it to the commission. So they have that. It's just a website, so you could reference that.
That'd be useful. And they also have a couple of booklets that describe, they do their own testing. And they work with, companies that make the products themselves to continue. And so this is a very fast moving area of manufacturing where even over a 2-year period, you get more choices and the cost is less. And the cost differential for regular glass is less. And most of the time, not always, but most of the time, the energy impacts of bird-friendly glass are a positive benefit for the building envelope itself. The Jacob Javits Center in New York, 7 acres of building, got a 95% reduction in bird strikes by going to all bird-friendly glass, and a 27% reduction in energy consumption.
And see, those types of things would kind of be handy if for some reason it's not mentioned by the FNRC rep that's there. Just additional, I guess, ammunition for some of us who are tree lovers that would like to further the envelope there. And again, I personally don't know the difference between frittering and, oh, well, we're just going to use non-reflective glass. I don't know how effective non-reflective glass is. So Vincent, if you're saying that that those standards that you're sending would answer that, that would be great. But as I'm, sitting there attempting, and really for my colleagues as well, who don't even attend your meetings, so they're not as versed on this. It just seems that I could get more support for that if I had a little bit more information.
Also, Nia, we have a meeting with the Natural Resources Joint Advisory Group on Monday, and one of the topics is the possible conflicts between the retail plan, which is the glass transparency, and bird-friendly glass. So that's CPHD and DES who's going to be coming and talking about that. So we may be able to tap into some of that as well. So
Yeah,
yes,
I appreciate.
yes.
Actually,
Yeah, I appreciate. Yeah, go ahead.
I have an update on that because I attended virtually a webinar put on by the Green Building Incentive Policy staff for developers last Wednesday. It was just an overview, but it confirmed what I had thought I read in the document, which I wasn't clear, that the beginning March 31st, the new standards for bird-friendly glass will be 0 to 50 feet. So the retail issue with the first 8 feet will go away, and the 36 feet will be elevated to 50 feet. That will be mandatory for anybody that wants GBIP starting March 30. Anything is submitted after March 31st.
Yes, and also know that moving forward, when a project comes in that I'm struggling with regarding tree canopy and other things, that I will likely make a motion, especially if there's no bird-friendly standards, glass standards. I'll probably be making a motion so that at least I can draw the county board's attention to it. So
That sounds great. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Really appreciate all of that. Okay, we're going to do really quickly legislative update.
It was 9:25. I'll be quick. Last 3 years, Delegate Hope has put forward a tree bill to give localities across Virginia more clout in setting more stringent canopy coverage standards and other things. The last 2 years, the bills were watered down in negotiation and still were vetoed by Governor Youngkin. This year, with the election results, there was high hopes that we could get a better bill out. And Bill Richardson, who's president of Donaldson Run, and I work directly with Patrick. And he also works with the lobby team at Chesapeake Bay Foundation to draft a bill that was more progressive. 2 provisions of note. One is, there's others, but the 2 of note that I would point out are a provision that basically took away a ceiling, so a locality can basically set standard percentage coverage standard as high as they might choose. And the second thing is, right now, canopy is measured at the 20-year mark. This would adopt a provision that only exists in Williamsburg, Virginia, nowhere else in the state, to have a 10-year target. And that would be much more meaningful in terms of maybe requiring more trees to be planted and also be a more accurate indication of how the canopy is doing after a decade instead of 20 years. Patrick put that bill in mid-January. You would think that it would sail through, but it had to go through county, cities, and towns in the House. The chair of county, cities, and towns is Representative Dan Helmer, Fairfax. And the word I had was that he basically said, this bill is dead. I don't want to put it through. The reasoning for that, we hear, is that Helmer, like the governor, is very much in favor of affordable housing, as we all are. And he buys the developer false narrative that you're not going to get affordable housing paid for it if you have to have these darn trees. It's too expensive. So he bought that. So in response to that, Patrick went back to last year's bill, which is much weaker, and got that through counties, cities, and towns. The problem is that bill took out the two provisions that I mentioned. So while it might help other parts of the state, it's kind of irrelevant to Arlington, but given our current ordinance. And that was sailing through now because it was much watered down. Over on the Senate side, Senator Salim had a bill which had the 10-year standard, just that canopy standard, only applying to Northern Virginia. This is how complicated this stuff is. And so we shifted our attention to arguing for that bill. And why that would be helpful, because that would still help Arlington if that bill got through. When that bill came over to the House, it was thrown out and put on Patrick's language was a replacement of Salim's bill. But Salim said, that's not acceptable to me. I want my 10-year standard. Possibly because behind the scenes, we were working, sending letters, sending emails, talking to delegates, doing a lot of lobbying, including I talked directly with Salim's LA to say, here's the 50 reasons why this 10-year provision is really important. You should push for this. I don't know if that was influential or not, but Salim fought back. Then in a late-breaking development, Salim put his bill on top of Patrick's. Patrick came back and put his original bill on top of Salim's, the one that had the good provisions in it. And so all of this is going to conference, maybe as early as tomorrow. And it's continuing to send stuff. I sent some just to Patrick's LA today with talking points and a flyer about all the reasons why this would be good, why you should fight for this, why you should argue that the affordability argument is a false narrative. But it's out of our hands. And Patrick is committed to tree bills, but in his list of priorities, it's at the bottom. It doesn't mean it's not important to him. He's fighting for it, but he's got other bigger fish to fry.
So is the greater than 20% in 20 years from the watered down bill still in there?
So in Patrick, basically the watered down bill is again off the table, and Patrick's original bill, which had the 10-year standard and the unlimited.
So that's still in play.
I have argued to his LA, not as a commissioner, just individually. I've argued that that's going to be a tough sell with developers. The unlimited thing that will everything scares the pants off them. That will really do it. So there are better percentages. There's also language in the statute now about for certain number of units per acre, you have to hit a 10% standard, a 15% standard, a 20 and 30, up to 35% standard. And so I suggested to Patrick's LA that could be a fallback. Those would still be helpful to Arlington. But you've indicated to me that the 10-year standard would be helpful. That would be something that we should consider as a county putting into our ordinance.
Could double the quantity of trees.
20% in 10 years or 10%?
No.
It's the time period.
Confused years with
Right,
percentages.
that's what.
Changing from a 20-year target to a 10-year. It stays the same percentage, but you get less credit for planted trees. So it actually makes conserved trees or saved trees more valuable to a development. And you would have to plant a lot more trees to make up that difference.
I would suggest, given my experience, I've had so many ups and downs as a roller coaster. I wouldn't buy champagne yet because I still think this has a tough road, but at least it's still in play.
Thank you. That's helpful for me too.
Yeah, it's good to know. Okay, anything else from anyone? I know it's a late night. Sorry to keep you all late, but anyway, lots of interesting things going on. So thank you. Good to see everyone.
Dr. Copy, you send it to us electronically.
Yeah, y'all.